What is up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Breathe and Air podcast, where everyday action meets extraordinary mindset. Today we have chef, health coach, personal trainer, Coach Paul. Thank you for joining the show, brother.
It's been a year since we last spoke, so everything's come full circle, and I'm excited to be here.
Tell me a little bit about since last time we talked, because you've been through some transformations of your own and helped a lot of people on their own transformations and kind of a change of scene even here in Miami. So what has it been like recently for you? What's been going on?
Bro, it's pretty hectic, but I love it. It's like controlled chaos. Being at where I'm at in life right now is just when you produce such extraordinary results, people don't really care about your degree, your certificate. It just kind of travels through word of mouth. So I've landed private chef and training jobs for high level entrepreneurs, professional athletes. Ilya Topuria was here a couple weeks ago. Got to meet him and cook for him, and you kind of just put yourself out there and things happen spontaneously like that. Call it synchronicity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's putting yourself in the right place at the right time. And you're a young entrepreneur, 22 years old. You're just early on your journey. So for those of you, the people listening right now that don't really know much about you or your journey this far.
Coming from a small hometown in Oregon, you kind of hit the top 1% easily in terms of, self-development. If you want to train and get jacked, it's pretty easy to dial in on that. But then you go out to a bigger city like Miami and you realize you're not that fucking special, But what separates you from the rest is your character. I think a lot of the people that bet on me and hired me instead of well-established, more seasoned, 40, 50-year-olds that, have their career set is because they acknowledge that I have the skill set to provide the same results, if not better. But it also boils down to who do you want on your team? It's not just about the results, but, the compatibility. Do you share the same values, the same morals? So I think that what separates me from, other youngins, because bro, just character carving throughout my whole life, doing things on my own, cultivating my own wisdom, and people respect that. And I can't speak for the people I work with, but I think that has a big part to do with it.
It's interesting because I feel like not only in the health space and what you're doing, and like you said, people see the results that you're getting, and at the end of the day, that's more important than a degree to somebody. But even in like the business space too, I feel like we're seeing younger people in the marketing space with marketing agencies, with utilizing social media, and businesses are starting to realize that the younger generation is really actually moving the needle in a lot of places where millennials or the older generation that didn't really grow up with technology or isn't, even in the health and wellness vertical and space, like the things that have been coming out over the last decade, were not necessarily available to a lot of people in that, age bracket. So it is interesting to see that shift, but it also opens up a whole entire world for entrepreneurs that are going to go take what's theirs. And I feel like you've been able to do that and kind of define a space for yourself.
Bro, I love it. I mean, I got so many young guys in my DMs, like email marketing, short form content, whatever, just shooting their shot. And it takes a lot of courage to kind of go against the norm, despite what your family's telling you, the path that you thought had, you envisioned this kind of life for yourself since you were a kid. Like, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to be this. And all of a sudden times are changing and you got to kind of, walk away from that path. So yeah, bro, I love to see it. And for those guys out there, just focus on being the best at what you do. It can be anything. Like, you could be a pet trainer, but if you're the best pet trainer, you got it all.
Yeah. So you mentioned, the cooking piece of what you do. And I think it's such a staple and so much more, result based even than training methods to an extent. So what kind of got you into, cooking and what's your relationship with it today?
Bro, cooking is such a essential part of my life, not even in some cliche way, but to my subconscious, it's very meditative. You're really immersed in the present moment. Mm-hmm. I started at a very early age, just being self-sufficient, not the best home life. So I had to learn things on my own. And, spending a lot of time with my grandmother growing up, you learn some things, and it's a form of self-care. And then as I got into my teenage years, I went into a paleo restaurant where I started as a busboy. But then, I started, chatting up with one of the chefs chefs. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I give it a shot. And they're like, whoa, like, we don't have to train you. Like, you're a natural at this. So I started chefing up there. It's so bizarre because people always ask me for cookbooks and recipes. And when you kind of learn your own sauce, like, you don't really go by recipes. You know, we're not talking about 2 tablespoons of salt, 1 tablespoon. It's like, you just kind of go as you cook. And no culinary background or formal education in terms of cooking. But, you know, when you learn how to take care of yourself and the people you work with, your family, why not have that expand into business?
I think that speaks volumes too, because experience trumps, you know, all other quote unquote like teachings or learnings that you could have. Being able to be in the arena, try something and have it taste like shit, or like know that, you know, you fuck up the recipe 6 times, you're going to try and figure out what's good. And then, like you said, you get used to these profiles of taste and seasonings and what works, what doesn't work, and all the little nuances that go into it. At the end of the day, it's like, it's fun, it's an experiment, and it is meditative to a sense. But I feel like in today's society too, you have a lot of people, you know, all these productivity gurus and people like this. It's like, they're like, oh, you know, I could go to Chipotle and this for this much money and save this much time and exponentially increase my business. And what do you have to say to those?
To any objection towards cooking, it's always flawed, bro. Just a little anecdote here. When I was working with a private client in Vegas, we took a private jet to Scottsdale and I was cooking for like 50 people. Then we came back, but I came back a day earlier because he wanted to stay there for golfing. I come back and obviously we were gone, so there's no groceries, no car, and no Amex. So I'm like, all right, let's chill. And then he texts me the next day, very short notice, like in 10 minutes, like, hey bro, I'm coming home, anything to eat? I'm like, oh shit, you know, because like I've never missed a beat so far. Every single meal fresh, ready to cook. But this was a little different. I was like, I can make you a smoothie, hold you over. So I make him a smoothie, and then I get the card, and then 30 minutes later, he's like, bro, I'm still hungry. And at this point, I thought I had time to get my workout in. So I'm like, okay, drop the workout, literally hit Whole Foods, hit the butcher. Wait, let me backtrack. So when he texts me, I'm still hungry, like, shall you just Uber Eats? And I'm like, fuck, like, I'm in the middle of this workout. I was like, yeah, bro, probably Uber Eats this one time. But I take a lot of pride as a private chef. Yeah. Like, prior to coming out to Vegas, he told me his favorite food was eggs Benedict, but with crab. So I was literally practicing that dish, and it's not a cheap dish to practice, and it's easy to fuck up too, especially like the hollandaise sauce. But anyway, I take a lot of pride in my work, and I was like, I'm a private chef and trainer, and he's doing Uber Eats right now. I'm dropping this workout, haul ass to Whole Foods, do a little grocery run, hit the butcher, because when you get the best of the best, you can't get everything in one spot. You gotta go everywhere. Farmers market, butchers. So then I get back home, lay out everything, cook. I think it was like a steak and egg with like a arugula sprout salad with like a fresh homemade dressing, balsamic vinaigrette or something. And I had it hot, fresh, and ready before his Uber Eats order arrived. So if you're telling me you don't have time, and plus like, when you order it, it's just like you're just waiting around, you know. It's really easy to cook at home. I know it's just like, I think it's just a code when you say, you know, it's too hard, it's too demanding. You're just kind of shying away from making a fool of yourself. But to learn, there's YouTube. You just go through trial and error.
You know, health is wealth, right? And at the end of the day too, when you do eat clean meals, when you aren't, Uber Eats usually doesn't show up very fresh and tasty anyways.
The driver probably ate some off.
It sat in that musty car on the way there. But yeah, I mean, it's the ROI for doing that is tenfold, I think. And there is so many different, you know, nutrient dense, good meals that you can cook that don't necessarily take an hour. You know, obviously, if you want to get really into some super intrinsic like dinner, you can spend as much time as possible on something. There's a lot of staples that you could, you know, do quickly, efficiently, and it would still meet all those needs.
Yeah, you kind of just treat it away as an artist treats a blank canvas. You know, you kind of learn the simple ingredients like, oh, I just got beef and potatoes and broccoli. It's like, no, you got burgers, you got tacos, you got fries, you got mashed potatoes. It's like these simple ingredients are so versatile. And once you kind of just do it once or twice, the next time you do it, you're not as like nervous about fucking up.
Obviously, you have clients as well who, you know, come to you for body transformations and things of that nature. I think with you, it's interesting too, because you have the culinary experience experience, and then you also have the training experience. So meshing those two together, I mean, it is like they are really in alignment. So for your clients, like how important do you put an emphasis on what they're eating and how they're eating and quantity and those kind of things?
So there's a couple of things I have them focused on. First and foremost, it is my sole responsibility to kind of curate a structure that fits into their lifestyle. Like, I'm not gonna have you cook every meal fresh if you're working like 16 hours a day. But if you got a wife and she supports you in your vision and wants that family to be healthy, I'll send her some recipes. Then you can pack it up for lunch. So my philosophy is that I'm not gonna have you count calories. I'm not gonna force you to do cardio. We're just gonna focus on the basic fundamentals, the principles of eating nourishing foods, high quality foods, having the proper training regimen according to your background with, injury, mobility, any medications you're taking, that sort of stuff. But every client is treated individually. And I think they are skeptical of a lot of online coaches because a lot of them have a cookie cutter approach and they're just focusing on the money and the dollar signs. And they're not focused as much on the fulfillment. Because, when I have a client that's pre-diabetic or with Hashimoto's or autoimmune diseases, I help them tirelessly until they get to their hard results. And I want to do it in a way where it's easy to maintain those results. I'm sure like a lot of people that lose fat that go through hard boot camps, like what's that show called?
Oh yeah, Biggest Loser.
Yeah, it was like over 70% of them gained all the weight back within like 16 or 18 months because of the hard protocols that weren't sustainable. So that's also something I focus on, sustainability.
Yeah, that's super important. And I feel like when it comes to a lot of these fad diets and things of that nature, it's that missing piece of sustainability. And it's like, how does this fit into your lifestyle? So I think that approach to it has to be super important because it isn't one size fits all.
Take on these clients, I kind of like pry into their life on a very intimate level. Like, hey man, if I'm coaching, I want to know why you're doing this. What's your main motivation? And from there, it's just small incremental lifestyle adjustments that compound over time, and that what makes it so easy, especially with the accountability aspect. Like, people think I live in the gym or I'm eating like so much proteins. Like, I have so much time to do whatever I want, enjoy my life, hang out with friends. So you're really not sacrificing that much at all. It's more so covering the baseline foundation, my client's health, to really improve their lifestyle. Focusing on your health, it shouldn't take over your lifestyle. It should complement it.
It's like a foundation, like a building block to everything else that you want in life, and it has to fit where it's supposed to be. For people that are listening right now and maybe they're early in their health journey or they're interested in some of the primary movers that they can leverage right away, like what are some things that people may not be doing right now that they need to be doing, and some of the biggest mistakes you see early on with your clients?
The biggest mistake, and the question I get the most, centered around training. Quit the guesswork around training. Building a solid foundation is really what matters the most in terms of your form, your approach, the metric system you're using to track your progress, because this is going to do a lot of things. It's going to prevent you from getting injured. It's going to prevent you from wasting your time. I mean, bro, I have clients that have worked out for like 4, 6, 8 years and like you can barely tell they lift. And it's like they're not doing things the right way, so they're just in this hamster wheel. But I bet your next question is more in depth, like what's it gonna look like? We all know that calisthenics guy that's kind of a twig, or that power lifter that's like pretty chubby, or the bodybuilder that's kind of stiff. You want to set up a training regimen for yourself where you address all of your weaknesses. Maybe it's mobility, maybe it's strength, maybe it's endurance. You want to train everything and at least be at a sufficient level. So not only do you look good, but you feel good, you move well, you have high energy, you can fight, you can run, it's basically, and it sounds really overwhelming, but if you set up a structure and you follow that structure for at least 3 months, you'll see big improvements. A lot of people just kind of go into this, hey man, I'm doing CrossFit for 2 weeks, didn't really like it, tried doing kettlebells for 2 weeks, not really seeing the results. So yeah, you want to build that foundation.
One thing that you mentioned there that's super important too is that metric system. Like, how are you tracking your progress? And if you are someone that maybe goes to the gym 3-4 times a week and you do a lot of the same lifts, like how are you seeing that progress? And like you said, the guy that works out for 4 to 6 years and then they may not really
average at best.
Average, right? So what is the way that you have your clients or yourself personally really track that metric and say, okay, today I did 2 225 for 6. And, now I need to make sure that I'm, progressing along the road.
So as I mentioned before, my approach with clients vary. So some of them just want to lose fat and get higher energy. Some of them want to be an anomaly. Like they want to be in that top 0.01% and look jacked. So it really depends. But if you want to get as jacked as possible, you need to be very specific with your training. I kind of do like a power building style where it's powerlifting and bodybuilding. So you're getting strong with your compound movements and you do specific percentages for specific sets and reps, and you do progressive overload, and it's foolproof because as you get stronger, there's no way you're getting smaller or staying the same. So with strength comes size, and you kind of weaponize that principle to complement your bodybuilding side where you're kind of just sculpting out the details. So you're building really dense muscle, but you're also getting really intricate details, making your muscle insertion pop more. That's more the aesthetic side of it. And then just a really good way to tell if you're on the right track is being strong in proportion to your body weight.
Right.
Things like weighted dips, weighted pull-ups. I'm not saying it needs to be the main center of your training, but it's just a really good way to tell you've done really well with what God gave you.
It's interesting too, because you hear so much noise and chatter, and for the standard person that's looking for guidance in the fitness industry, you hear a lot of different things like, oh, you only need to work out 2 times a week and do these movements. And then you hear guys saying like, no, we need to hit volume and those kind of things. For you, as far as like a standardized approach, what does a split look like during the week? How many days of training? What are you focusing on if you're just talking about like a standard split for muscle gain?
Before I get into that, I wouldn't just put anyone onto it. I think a lot of those guys kind of like impose their own philosophy and what worked for them onto others. And yeah, that's just like the kind of cookie cutter approach that doesn't work for most people. But for me personally, for muscle gain, I like a high volume frequency in terms of your weekly training. So, 5 sessions a week. I'll have back one day, chest one day, arms one day, legs one day, shoulders one day. So you're telling me you get a whole day for shoulders and only shoulders, and they're not gonna, because most people will just like, do some lateral raises when they're already tired. But if you really want to gain muscle really fast, this is a pretty advanced split. It's going to be quite challenging if you're new, and you could face some overtraining issues, but that's what I do. And it's just fun for me. Like some people dread the gym. I like look forward to it.
Yeah.
Like even on rest days, I'll be like, I like work on my calves or something. Or maybe my neck. I don't know.
Love the gym too, and I love working out. And so I sometimes think if you're in that category of mindset, you have to be careful with overtraining, and you have to also prioritize rest and recovery. So for recovery, tell us a little bit about what are some of your go-tos for recovery for someone that is training hard right now, and what are some things that you see people doing wrong when it comes to recovery?
Right now, I mean, we're here in sunny Miami, right across the beach. I love getting in the ocean water. It's like a free Epsom salt bath. You're absorbing all those minerals, and I think people underestimate how much your skin is like the second largest organ in your body. So it absorbs so much. It's not just what you eat, but what you put on your body. Right now, I'm not that militant about it, but I will tell you, when I was on the mission of hitting 405-pound bench, let me tell you, bro, I was optimizing everything. It was ridiculous. Like red light, shut off the blue light. I gotta get my deep REM sleep, wake up, get some sunlight, walk in nature, meditate, eat my raw testicles, string my beats. Like there's a pretty, I don't know, like you can just go really far with it, really deep into it. But the basics, like, lock down a sauna in general for general wellness. It does so much for you, detoxing. Cold plunge if you can in the morning. As I mentioned, like when we first came up here, like I've kind of like strayed away from that deep like biohacking esoteric stuff, because I really do believe like people are focusing on the wrong things. Unless you're like an Olympic lifter or a professional athlete, like bro, if you just want to look good, you don't need to do all of that. If it's there, yeah, it's great for you, but focus on the fundamentals first.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the esoteric stuff, and in terms of like your cooking, I've seen that crossover too, and incorporating some of these more ancestral, if you want to call it ancestral, ways of cooking, eating when it comes to raw food as well. What are some of the things that you've experimented with in that kind of category? Maybe a little bit more esoteric and into the weeds here, but I feel like a lot of people listening are interested in it and have seen a lot of it and heard a lot of it if they're, interested in the show. So I know that you are one of the few that really does incorporate a lot of these foods and ways of living into your lifestyle. So what are some of those things, and how have they helped you?
Sustainability being one of my main philosophies transfers over to cooking and nutrition as well. You want your foods to taste good and be nourishing. Just because you want to eat healthy doesn't mean it has to taste like shit. But there's something I made recently with bull testicles. You can make ceviche out of it, and it's amazing. I was like pretty shocked because Fitz, he tried it. He was like, bro, I can't, it tastes like shit. It's balls in your mouth. So I made ceviche with it, and prior to making it, I was collabing with Liver King's chef in the DMs. I was like, we're just spitballing ideas back and forth. So I made it, tasted really good, brought it to KG, then just had a bunch of homies there. I was like, yo, try this, let me know what you think. Obviously I told them it was balls, but they weren't turned off, and they're like, dude, yeah, it's solid. Take it kind of as a challenge when I hear like, dude, this food is disgusting, and I try to find a way to make it taste delicious. Liver, I will make it into a French style pate, and you don't need to down raw liver. There's like a little bit of nutrient degradation, but if you can eat it cooked, that's better than nothing, because it's super dense and all the micronutrients, covers a lot of deficiencies a lot of these people have. Shout out. Be dope to work with you one day.
No, I think it's really interesting, and obviously you get the crazy personalities and everything that goes along with it, but I think that people need to do their own research always when it comes to health and fitness. Like you said, know that it's personalized, but there is some things that are facts, and foods like liver and other organ meats are extremely rich in minerals and things that the average American now is extremely deficient in because of monocropping, because of the way our food is produced, and because of a lot of the other awful practices of American ecosystem today. So those things are true. And when that whole thing came out with Liver King, I was like, this sucks, because anyone that kind of has some type of knowledge knows he was on sauce the whole fucking time. But at the same time, I was like, this kind of sucks, because he was helping a lot of people in what he was doing, and now people are going to think it's a fad and bullshit, when in reality, like, a lot of the stuff he was saying, and even with the liver, is true. Like, it is a extremely powerhouse, nutrient dense food. Eating it raw is pretty rough. Like, I don't think that's very sustainable, to your point. You gotta
be a little masochistic for that.
It is a strong taste, without a doubt. But along that, I think we've seen decline in health, men's testosterone specifically too. And I know you work with a lot of men, and I know there's a lot of guys that listen to the show, but even for women, I think it's important for them to understand and realize, some of the things that men are maybe dealing with, or, just in terms of overall deficiencies of nutrients and hormone imbalances that kind of are very prevalent today. So for some of your clients, maybe men in general, testosterone, you talked about working with entrepreneurs, it's such a, foundational hormone for so many other things other than just your sex life. So how, have you helped your clients, maybe raise those levels a little bit, or, see results? And what do you think about the whole testosterone epidemic today?
Yeah. So with my clients, with the protocols I set them on, first thing they'll notice is a libido boost and an energy boost. I work with a lot of high performing entrepreneurs, and these guys are taking meetings and sales calls all day. When it comes to the agriculture stuff and the decrease in testosterone over the decades, look, man, like, not everyone can have their own garden or their own farm. That brings me to my next point. You do what's in your control. The idea isn't to get to perfect health. The idea is to attain good optimal health, so you can take on the hits and keep going, so you can have that body where it's resilient to all the bullshit and environmental factors you can't control. But what you can control is your stress. Like, you might think it's kind of a meme, but your testosterone has a lot of correlation to your mindset, just like grind set. Knowing how to deal with stress and decreasing your cortisol levels and when to utilize stress to your advantage can make the huge difference in terms of your mental fortitude, and by extension your testosterone levels. Because with stress, you're depleting magnesium, you're depleting theanine, you're producing more estrogen. It is just the biggest killer. So learning how to manage your stress is probably the biggest thing. And it's not like avoid stress by all means. It's knowing how to approach your stress and weaponize it to your advantage.
Clip that, because that is so important. I feel like today, in a stress-filled culture, to be able to mitigate that in some ways, and like you said, weaponize it, because stress is a positive in many ways. Talk about the sympathetic state and what it does to focus. I saw you had recently posted and tried around fasting. I think we've heard a lot about fasting within the last year plus, a lot of, I think, fads associated with it as well, but there's obviously a lot of data driven and analytical facts of what it can do in terms of cell turnover and other things of that nature. For people that, maybe hearing about fasting, looking into fasting, what is your opinion on that, and how can we utilize it as a tool, and when should you utilize it as a tool versus, maybe straying away?
So with all these kind of fads, diets that you're hearing, there will always be pros and cons to it. For example, if you want to go full carnivore, only meat and eggs because you have a skin condition, that could heal it, but is it sustainable for long-term health? No. So with intermittent fasting, it's kind of a trade-off, right? You got that mental sharpness, your cognition is just like a 24/7 Adderall, like limitless pill, but then you're kind of high strung. So if it works for you and your lifestyle, like the guy I was working with in Vegas, busy entrepreneur, he really didn't want to sit down and eat just to get this much more muscle when it's going to impact his energy levels that he needs to bring to meetings, then definitely do it. I do it too. Not all the time. Most of the time, I find that I am most productive with work in the mornings until noon.
Same.
So it's like, it's not even like really intentional. It's kind of just like naturally your body doesn't wake up and like get hungry. Some people, they do, but yeah, it just really depends on your lifestyle and the structure you want to set for yourself.
In terms of, people who are, maybe with a personal trainer or have in the past, and, someone who's like macros and calorie counting, you mentioned you don't really have that as much. And I never, for one, have been into calorie counting as much as either, and unless I was really, really trying to gain weight. But, what's your opinion on that? And are there certain macros that we really need to be hitting, or is it kind of just based on what you're trying to accomplish?
It's based on what you're trying to accomplish, but you want higher protein, and if you're like, oh, high protein's bad, you can't digest it all. But no, because then you got your probiotics. How are you going to, optimize your digestion? There's things you can take, digestive enzymes, or you can go the probiotic route with, fermented vegetables, chewing thoroughly. But high protein is the thing I focus on the most just to support my physique. But with fats, don't really pay attention. They're naturally occurring. They kind of come, with the meat you're eating or the seafood you're eating. Carbs, I used to love white rice and I still do, and it's a great carb, especially like for pre-workout. It's really fast acting glycogen, but there's just no nutrients for it. And the reason why this is important is because you want to be nutrient maxing. You want to be in a nutrient surplus while being in a caloric deficit. This is what makes getting lean really easy, because you're so nourished, your body is not craving, it's completely satiated, your energy level's great, your libido's great, you're just all around kind of like a well-oiled machine that's operating with less.
Yeah, we need to be nutrient maxing. Remember that.
Yeah.
That brings me to the point of water. We see a lot of, things today. If you're in the esoteric Twitter space of tap water, how bad it is for you, we know all of these things. But I think for the public and the common person that's just getting into maybe what is good for their health, they don't realize how detrimental tap water and some of these other things could be, not just for their skin, but also drinking. And, obviously water is a staple for our health. So what are some of the things that people are maybe missing, and what is your take on water and how we should be drinking it?
So with water, I actually barely drink tap water. Like maybe I do accidentally, but I'm not really stressing about it. Remember the stress? So I'm not neurotic about my health, because then I'll hit the sauna, get it out of my body at some point. But it's something to look into, because compounded over time, you might notice things like skin issues, dry skin, hair loss, things that aren't normal. What I do is I'll throw in really high quality sea salt, and that will just mineralize your water, and get a shower filter. And it doesn't have to be the most expensive one, but if it gets, a good amount of heavy metals out of your water, then that's a net positive. So those are two things you can do. Filter your water, throw in some minerals. I can use soul salts, bring it to the workouts. I can go fasted for days, like just using soul salts. And then I'll throw in magnesium chloride and sometimes iodine, zinc if I haven't eaten like oysters or, something heavy in zinc in a while. So, but to stay the most hydrated, I love coconut water and fresh squeezed juices. When I'm drinking that, I notice I don't have to drink as much liquids to stay hydrated, regardless if I'm, performing like a tank out there out in the sun, swimming, running, training hard.
Coconut water is such a staple. I drink so much coconut water, I swear. But you got to make sure you're not drinking the ones that have added sugars and stuff as well. Just straight coconut water. That's the only ingredient you want to see. No added sugar. But yeah, I drink that stuff so much.
The Harmless Harvest.
Costco has one too. It's pink like the Harmless Harvest, organic, and just straight up coconut water. Tastes pretty similar, but also really, really good. In terms of, your lifestyle, so we've talked about, stress and and diet and exercise. In terms of like outside of that, what are ways that, you know, you've been able to stay right and strong in your mindset, in your business, and as you continue to grow, you know, what are some things that you really keep as a priority in your life?
Yeah, man, there's seasons for everything, right? When you really want to go hard into business, when you want to get more experience in the dating world and start, you know, taking girls on dates, or you want to find yourself. There's seasons for everything, but one thing that stays year round is my health, just because everything operates from there. People ask like, yo, in this picture you look shredded to shit, like was this a photo shoot, were you prepping? I was like, no, I look like this year round, like unintentionally. Maybe I'll fluctuate like 11 to 13, but like 12% body fat is usually where I stay. So that's something that always stays with me. At this point, it's on autopilot, and that's where I get all my clients to get them on autopilot, where it's effortless. So, you know, it's really crucial, because there's no point in getting the results if you're just gonna go back to your old ways. So it's really important to stay principle based. But to take it even further, just really tapping into your spiritual side, knowing what your mission is on earth is.
Yeah.
And taking it very serious, but yet operating from a very lighthearted place. Not, you know, because like, you know when to like turn up the gears, but you know when it's like, all right, like, you know, there's always a time and place to talk, time and place to work, time and place to be lighthearted. So you got to tap into that side, because one underlooked or undervalued aspect to your health is the social / communal side. You know, like, do you have a really good support system? Are you that guy that takes their stressors out on other people, or are you always kind of handling shit while no one even knows you're going through it? Because you never want to be the guy projecting.
Yeah, and I think that's so important and often overlooked in this space. Even, you know, if it's someone just starting off or someone who's trying to like optimize for the 1%, honestly, counterbalances it when you're being so neurotic about it, right? Like, you're stressing about, oh my God, like I just ate something with seed oils in it, and you're like, oh, like that is going to produce more of a negative effect mentally and physically, and the stress that you're making up in your brain than that will in the short term. So there is a fine line and a balance, and it's easy to get immersed in this like extreme culture. But at the same time, like you said, the spiritual side, the mental side, those things in the long run, in terms of longevity, life sustainability, your health overall, are, you know, should be put on the pedestal in my opinion.
Yeah, I've been in so many situations like that. I remember I was on a yacht with this like pretty high level entrepreneur, and he was like, oh, is it your cheat meal? Like, I was like, bro, I'm not stressed. I didn't even think about like what I'm doing. Like, you know, I'm ripping shots of tequila, not stressing at all. Yeah. Just having a good time. And, you know, with that mindset, your body will just get out of your body. Like I said, get your body to good health. It'll take care of you.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. I feel like early on, even though I was an athlete in college and high school and was training and like doing those things, my diet probably wasn't super dialed, but, you know, I was pushing for weight gain. I wasn't really caring at certain times. Like, I was really just trying to perform on the field and be able to hold my weight on the field. And so it wasn't until after I got out when I started realizing, and I had already had a base level, you know, understanding of training and fitness and also, you know, diet and what's good for you and what's not. My mom actually was a personal trainer growing up and was super based way before it became like very popular. So like the organic food and everything, like I didn't like grow up with Pop-Tarts and like Coke in my house. Like, that just wasn't a thing. So I'm grateful for that and thankful for that, because it made the transition easier when I really started cooking for myself and I kind of had a base level understanding. But I think what everyone should shoot for is kind of what you said, like getting them on autopilot, because at a certain point, like, it does become a lifestyle. And that's where I feel like most people fall short, is because it hasn't become a lifestyle and it's something they're so hyper focused on that it is counterproductive in the long run, and sustainable, you know, sustainability becomes an issue too. But it's so easy, like, I wouldn't say so easy, but it is easy to, you know, find foods that you love, find staples, find a way of life that fits in with social and health to kind of create this full being, which at the end of the day, that's what health is to me. It's being able to enjoy life as much as you want. You know, obviously you can have your own goals if you're running a marathon or trying to, you know, get jacked, but like, it is about being as best as you can possibly be, being able to pick up your grandkids one day. Like, those are the kind of things that I think about whenever I'm trying to optimize. And in terms of our brain, our neurochemistry, and the things that, you know, it helps us with in the long run too, it's how you should be looking at it from a holistic point of view, as opposed to like, I want bigger biceps. And I feel like like it's easy to get caught in that sometimes for a lot of people starting out.
And there are benefits of being jacked, but like you said, like when was the last time you got sick? And when you do get sick, you bounce back pretty quick. Baseline is so strong, but in the more superficial way, being jacked does have a lot of intangible benefits. I don't think I would have gotten a lot of the jobs and opportunities I had if I wasn't such an anomaly. You know, for Asians specifically, like seeing a jacked Asian is like, no one's asking about my values or seeing what kind of personality I have. They're just like, bro, I'm gonna get jacked as you. How do you do it? Plenty of benefits to be jacked.
Regardless of how we feel, the world is, you know, the way it is and superficial and you know, sees appearance a lot of times. And I feel like that is a trust parameter. Like they trust that you are on top of your shit and doing what you need to be doing, because it takes discipline to be fit. And so whenever someone sees that aesthetic, it automatically kind of gives you that trust factor and value that someone who may not have that probably wouldn't receive.
And I think that's instilled consciously or subconsciously. I've seen it with my in-person clients where they garner more respect in their meetings when, you know, kind of gives more validation to the words you are saying. Even with girls, like you can be straight up authentic and they'll just respect it. And, you know, if they can sniff out a phony, then, you know, you're just going to lose that trust.
In terms of, you know, the spiritual side, I want to talk a little bit about like your journey there. You know, you'd mentioned, you know, meditation and some other things. And I know that from our previous conversations, you are into tying the mind and the body together and that correlation. So what has your spiritual journey been, and kind of how has that helped you in not just your fitness and your health, but your overall life?
I gotta credit a lot of my spiritual growth to my grandma and my dad and my sister. They've taught me some things that would lead me to where I am today, and I wouldn't be here without them. You know, my sister showed me unconditional love, and I can always tap into that feeling, or the way my grandma nurtures and cares for me with all of her wisdom and food, and kind of how the stoic behavior my dad operated with, you know, just never really having a sit down talk with me, but just showing me through his actions, giving when he has nothing to have. So being really observant as a child early on in my life, I can always tap into those moments just with 2 seconds eyes closed, and I can just turn it on. And I think that's a really strong form of meditation for me, where I'm not just being or escaping or letting go, but I'm really just like turning on different modes and channeling different vibrations for whatever I want to achieve. And I think for me at 22 years old, most guys struggle with getting distracted, abusing stimulants or drugs or whatever. For me, all I need is just to kind of tap into that vibration, and then I'm back on track for whatever I need to do.
For someone who's hearing this and is like, wow, I really want to get on this track to be able to, you know, cultivate that awareness and that control over my psyche and the mental aspect of life, you know, what are some tips for the listeners that they can kind of start maybe even just being aware of something, or like tapping into that internal force or that, you know, God inside of us, that they can kind of start progressing down that road to being more enlightened human being?
I'd say connecting with other people. You can get really lost in your own bias. Something I love to do is chatting up with homeless people on the streets. And every time I do that, I leave the conversation feeling refreshed. In terms of training, you need to be jacked, because once you get jacked, you realize that physical pain is nothing. And when you realize that's nothing, it kind of humbles you that you are nothing, but not in a self-deprecating way, more so in a way that there is more to life than just what you see. And if you can tap into that, you're going to be an anomaly. It's a truth you know within yourself, and you don't need anyone else to connect you with on it. So you'll never struggle with being depressed, being lonely, being anxious. You know you got it.
Self-confidence that's built through the pain that you go through physically. And it is a mental game as well, you know, to get those last couple of reps and to you know, get up early and get your training in and to be disciplined and do that. So while it is a physical act, like the mental capacity is the umbrella, and it's going to be, you know, the roof if you don't bust through that mental self-limiting beliefs or that mindset that may be holding you back at the end of the day. Yeah, put some force to it. Yeah, I remember I was reading something the other day, and the guy was talking about how if you've ever done a ultra marathon or like you know, Ironman or anything that's like extreme physical, pushing the boundaries of your physical capabilities, even in the gym, it's like everything else seems so easy in life. And it's like, that really does make sense. You know, a lot of people go through a lot of hardships, and you know, it kind of hardens their mind, but we're living in such a comfortable society now that those of us that are blessed to have not gone through some other hardships that other people may have, we have to be able to throw throw ourselves in the fire to like mold and like create those calluses.
Yeah, I am very anti-fragile. The way you build your physical calluses, your mental calluses are developed in the same way. Things that would have devastated you 10 years ago could happen to you and you won't even be phased.
Yeah.
Because when you're training, you kind of like understand that this isn't going to kill me. It's going to make me stronger. It's going to make me grow. Same thing with stressors, you know, like profound heartache, loss of a loved one, things like that. You don't have to be a robot. You can feel things, but you know, like how to move forward, being stronger instead of letting it control, you know, your actions from there on forward, for the worse at least.
What is next for Paul? What is your vision for life as you move forward, or is there one? Like, what do you really want to accomplish moving forward?
I've got this grand vision of what makes me fulfilled in this kind of life I want to have, building a beautiful family, traveling, being secure. But for now, while I'm 22, I'm just kind of running and gunning it, you know. Time is at my expense, and I can just do whatever I want, however I want, and that's not to be wasted. So I wake up every day really ready to get after it. Right now, my main focus is helping as many men change their lives for the better. You know, when I'm getting messages 6 months later, a year later, and they're still going, I don't think there's anything more fulfilling to me than that, especially for work. So just keep on growing my business, keep on helping guys, and staying true to myself all along the way.
Any of the guys listening right now that are interested in, you know, joining your program, you know, whether it's cooking, whether it's, you know, getting plans from you and you know, physical advice as well, where can they find you and what you're doing?
So you can find me at training.paul on Instagram. You can DM me there, or on Twitter, it's Coach PAUI. I've got some threads I've written. You can tap into some of the stuff I talk about, or we can just book a call and see if it makes sense, see if I can really help you sort your health out. Worst case scenario, you just get some pointers, and I'm always happy to help.
I might have to join, honestly. You know, I always love just putting myself, like you said, in those different perspectives, and as much as, you know, I've dove into these topics and tried to optimize that 1%, like there could be things that I, you know, don't know, and I think that's something that we all have to hold true, is like, we don't know everything. We never will. We are nothing at the end of the day, and being able to live that humble mindset in life, but at the same time be confident in what you want to accomplish and what you are capable of. And when that comes together and meshes properly, like, you become superhuman.
There's 100% truth to what Mason just said. Like, when you know you are the shit, but you're humble enough to keep growing and learning, you are an unstoppable force. Like, I will research tirelessly for my clients. And if you enjoy this talk, and if you're here right now, chances are you're pretty aligned with us, and that's the kind of people I like to work with.
So there's a question we love to ask to finish the show, and it is, what is your definition of success?
Definition of success is whatever it is you envision, you can make happen.
I love it. Short and to the point. It's such a great question, because when we talk a year from now and have you back on the show, or however long it is, and I ask you the question again, like, it may have changed, you know, and it's this ever evolving thing that's personalized to us, but so many of the answers have so much truth to them. So I always love asking that question. But Paul, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I know we're gonna, you know, keep growing together and stay connected. So best of luck in Tampa too, man. Like, Tampa, that's gonna be sick.
I'm excited. I appreciate you, man.
All right, guys, if you enjoyed today's show, leave a comment. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen, give the show a review if you haven't, and let us know what you thought of the show today. We always love to hear your feedback, so we can make sure we're tailoring it towards what you want to hear and the guests that you want to come on. So thank you guys so much for joining another week of Breathe and Air podcast with my boy, Coach Paul, and we'll see y'all next week.
Peace.
Peace.